It's your man, PooNanners, your Texas caster and hype master, and I'm joined by the best VR commentator to come out of 2K games and evolve, because he's a man who plays these games and has been doing so since the beginning on Twitch, does not care about what ends up happening as a result of that. He just goes for it. StealthShampoo, who I hear is still recovering from the Pizza Hut incident of 2016.
Man, I am still hungry and I haven't had pizza for 2 years. Thanks a lot, Dino.
Oh, man, you can't count on that guy for anything, can you?
No, but you know what you can count on is this show to bring you a breakdown of every single virtual reality esport, and we have exclusive interviews with lots of the players.
That's right. The people that top the leaderboards, the people that are climbing their way up to the top. We even have Haskell, a community favorite, jumping in there. This is a community cast, so all of us in the community that play these games and love these games are working on this, and we're going to reach out to you guys later at the end of the stream to let you know where you can go so you can help us out. Send us your highlights, send us your write-ups. If you have a league that you're working on, there's collegiate leagues sprouting up everywhere, so let us know about that stuff. But first, we want to get into Sprint Vector. So what you're going to see here is Katie Dead. She records these videos for us. It's one of our top players in Sprint Vector. Katie right here is going from rooftop to rooftop. This game has a similar mechanics to Mario Kart. For example, if you're in the back, you'll get better items. If you're in the front, you're going to get just things you throw down, like these mines that slow people down. Also, there's a lot of shortcuts similar to Mario Kart. The shortcuts are more risky, and they can cut off just a small amount of time for very high risk. You see, she was able to come into second place. She lost it for a second, was able to regain it by cleverly using her items and her ability to use shortcuts, and that was able to get her where she needed to be in order to stay on top. But that wasn't enough to put her in the lead, as we were able to see that Kaznaz was able to take the lead away from Joker, who had done so early on out of nowhere, using his high-tech speed skills and bunny hopping and jump boosting to hold on to that lead and to stay pretty strong in the league. We see our friend Katie here not quite doing as well as she hopes, but still putting up a strong showing for the second cup. Over in the EU League, we saw Stody once again destroying his competition with Unspoken pros right on his heels. He still maintains quite a strong league, and those guys are kind of more or less, I think, vying for second place in the European leagues to try to get to the World Qualifier. We'll see how that plays out. I'd like special thanks to Katie Dead for volunteering that footage. As we both know, Servios doesn't quite have a spectator client for Sprint Vector yet, but we have heard someone mention that there might be something in the works. I do know that the developers kept assuring us that the game was in a completed state. I think they maybe have like a handful of things planned.
But that game is not only a great workout, but also one of the most well-polished virtual reality games that I think PooNanners and I have ever played.
You're basically doing this mostly, and you do some kind of dodging, but it's mostly this movement, like all the way back, kind of like you're skiing. But what's really brilliant about that is that that is not a workout that you would have any fun doing without a headset on, seeing the beautiful visuals that Servios has given us, who were, famous for making Raw Data, one of the very first games to be that exciting and beautiful in the 2016 VRscape, where there wasn't really anything interesting or awesome out at the time. So when you told me that they were the ones also making Sprint Vector, really piqued my interest as well. And we had so much fun in Vegas. I had fun winning, obviously. But
and I also got a computer.
Yes, you did. And then when the ESL tournament started, Kaznaz and a whole bunch of other guys just started coming out and just destroying. Let's check out this interview with Kaznaz. All right here, dressed in wolfskin, I've got Kaznaz. Not quite getting the win that you wanted in the first cup, but in the second cup you pulled it off. Everybody kind of expected you to be the fastest dog in town, quite literally here. So, what are your pro moves for dealing with exhaustion, dehydration, and soreness?
Lots of water. That's about it. And then just playing the game a lot.
I agree with that, man. That was one of the problems at the Vegas one. At the end of every round, I was like, give me a second. I'm still catching my breath. How close are they coming to beating you on much of these tracks, though?
The first few, they were a lot closer. But I'm guessing in the last, everyone else got tired because I was like a solid time ahead of them.
So you're the one maintaining that endurance. That's what we like to see in our VR Esports. We said it's a combination of gamer mentality, knowing how to use that strategy, fast mind, but you've got to work your body too. Any tips for somebody trying to get into the league?
Missiles. Learn how to use missiles good, because those are the biggest items.
That was one of the things I trained for before the CES tournament. Was I got really good at shooting down missiles, but luckily no one was good at shooting missiles, so I didn't have to. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. I can't wait to talk to you next time. Sure, you're going to be on top of the leaderboards again.
We'll see.
So that was a good old Kaznaz, a guy that we saw him in the chat room. We knew of him, but did not expect him to come out that strong and that hard, just destroying everybody.
There's a lot of room in the cups right now, especially on the European side if you guys want to get into it. So take a look at the ESL website if you want to get into these Sprint Vector tournaments. You can win some fabulous prizes, or at least e-fame.
And and we didn't even cover it, but they have community cups for people who play on Vive or on Steam. So you can get in those for bragging rights. I mean, they're not the money cups because most of that stuff is sponsored through Oculus. And I think some stuff is also sponsored by Intel. It really depends. So if you want to push Valve to have them sponsor the Steam Cups, that's how you would get that to happen, or pick up your own sponsors and roll it into the VR Master League. Which is one of the other games that they do is Pavlov, which we're going to go into now with this wonderful video put together by Nikki here, StealthShampoo.
And now it's time to talk about one of my favorite games, Pavlov. Last week's ties between Dream and Voltron were settled as teams went head-to-head during this week's rematch. The two top-tier teams haven't faced off since Week 1, and Voltron emerged with a decisive victory on Dust 2. Voltron swept even harder on Mirage, handling Dream the goose egg for rounds 1 in the second match, 10-0. Voltron effectively holds the highest standing in the Pavlov VR Masters League, putting an additional 40-point MMR gap from that last game between themselves and Dream, who are feeling a huge loss of 30 points, while Voltron only gained 10 points, despite the teams being top 2 in the league. Dream still holds second place for now. Out of nowhere, Team Magma flew from unranked to 4th, only to be shut out by TNT 0-2. Meanwhile, TNT and the Mafia went 1-1 with the conclusion of their match to come next week. One could argue that the Mafia's loss to the Leftovers, comprised of winners from VR Master League's VR Cover and Pro Tube tournament, were due to the damn Atlantic Ocean being in the way of decent ping. European teams VRATH and higher-ranking Reapers tied last week, with the Reapers sitting in 3rd place in the league. Lastly, Team Arctic scores their first W, who's a newer team who went up against Oz Army this past week. If you want to get in on the action, join the league Discord linked down in the description.
That's Pavlov, right? Developed by that one-man team known as Dave.
He's a one-man team, and this dude is pushing out updates. There's a Battle Royale mode that's been confirmed coming soon.
Yes.
So I'm just catching up once again on the Pavlov Esports team, but Voltron is insanely dominant right now. These players just move differently.
They're hilarious watching them play. There's that Ace video where he pre-cooks a flash grenade because he can hear them coming around the corner. He's like, that's 5 guys, all of them. All right. Pre-cooks a grenade, toss in their face, take off, and pulls out his pistol round and starts wrecking everybody. Takes them down like this. We were talking about the top team, Voltron or Voltron Force, which I like to call them, and their top player and captain, Vrespawn. After coming off their win, we were able to get an interview with them, so let's take a look. All right, here we have the man himself, Vrespawn of the undefeated Voltron Force, fresh off their win over Dream. Man, how do you feel about that win?
Oh, outstanding. Finally set us apart from the close second ranking. Hopefully this momentum will be enough to carry us through the season. Hopefully we don't start slipping.
Well, I see you've built yourself a good team here. It's good to see that you guys are on top and are fighting it out. Are y'all trying out some new meta as the game goes forward? I mean, I know there's a lot of CSGO mechanics that are still here, but have y'all tried out some new mechanics that come out as a result of it being VR and kind of free to move around as you please?
So the thing I've noticed here is that when people try to use CSGO tactics, I don't know, they tend to fall apart. I don't know if it's VR related or anything. We never really have any strategies, but from the amount that we play together, we tend to know what each other are doing, know where people will be, and we don't really have any strategies though.
Teamwork and friendship will beat out those who don't have it, right?
Yeah, friendship triumphs all.
Yep, that's what I learned from watching Pokemon as well. I can't wait to see more from you guys. Is there any upcoming threats that you're worried about? Any teams you want to shout out as somebody you're coming for them?
TNT, you're going down. And I'm talking to you, Swordcaster.
I can't wait to see more from you guys. I can't wait to see more of those highlight videos. Even without spectator, first person, it looks really good. And hopefully people check out more of those.
Yes, I will make the perfect highlights just for you.
So that was Razfrazmataz, fun guy to say, a name to say, leader of Voltron, an incredibly difficult team to fight if you ever run into them in a public match, which is not likely, but if you ever run into them, it's usually just a terrible time for you and anybody else involved. Those guys are incredibly good. We have to also talk about one of the earliest games to be added in league play before there was even the two major leagues, the Unspoken, who, if I remember correctly, you won something playing the Unspoken when it first came out?
Yeah, back in PAX West. This was actually, I think, maybe less than a year after it came out, maybe a year after it came out, PAX West. No one there expected the ranked 20th player to show up, which, if you guys don't follow the leaderboards, even though I'm ranked 20 out of hundreds, thousands, the gap between 20 and 10 is pretty insane. I couldn't beat the number 10 guy. It's probably like Super bad. Joshua. Super Joshua's probably around the number 10 range. I probably couldn't beat that guy.
Oh, Super Josh is insane. Super Josh is a real young kid, real wiry, gets angry at the drop of a hat. I think they even had to ban him from the Discord a couple times to get him to calm down. I met that kid in person, had to calm him down because he was number 8 seed and came in 8th place, and he was pretty upset about it. But watching him play AK, which is what he primaries, man, he's a murder machine at it, but that's how they beat him. Everybody knows he doesn't have a pocket class. He has one class, and as a result, gets roasted about it. We have a video talking more about the game and how the ladders have been going for their Season 2 that we're currently in. Keep in mind, anybody who watched the World Finals that happened in Poland, even though Rukafeld was the number 1 seed from North America from that regional tournament, he did not place well. And Charizard, who was a number 2 seed, but we all knew he was a number 1 player, especially from that first tournament they had in New York before there were any leagues. He came in first quite handily, even playing as a TK, which a lot of people didn't quite expect him to do. Well, anybody who wasn't paying attention anyway. And he's still just as brutal as ever. Let's take a look. Season 2 of the VR League sees the return of the Unspoken, where they throw cars, fireballs, knives, lightning, and miniature galaxies throw a slingshot at one another while they wait for an opening or a mistake to dish out brutal punishment. The TK Drifter meta is still going very strong, and Charizard's still holding on to his world champion position after taking the title during the World Finals in Poland back in March. It's very fun watching these guys duke it out. Here we have Rukafeld and Charizard going at it on Charizard's channel, but right now he's running Drifter. That's that slingshot gives it away. When he pulls up his shield, he can see where the embers are going to spawn in order to stay on top of that. During the regionals back in Oakland, we saw Charizard make a lot of mistakes. Not many, but it almost seemed like he believed that he couldn't be beaten and was a little bit looser than he should have been. And that's where Rukafeld was able to take him down and seal the deal as the number 1 regional player in North America. Checking out the leaderboards, you can see that last week, even though Zigetsu normally takes number 2, last week Rukafeld was able to step it back up and take down the number 2 position. But the rankings and points are still in the favor of Zigetsu. Over in the European League, we can actually see that it's pretty much the same there. The top in the EU, Flush Go-Go, who came out of nowhere and really shined in the Poland World Finals to take second place, is still holding on to the top there without too much trouble. Well, let's check out this Getsu interview. So we have here Zigetsu, number 2 seed from North America. I noticed that you lost your match against Ryuk this time around. Want to let us know what happened there?
I'm not playing as well as I should. I'm making mistakes that I shouldn't be.
Just cut and dry. Now, I hear you're still nursing that wrist injury. How's that treating you?
Certainly getting worse from putting in practice for this.
Gotta get sponsored by Icy Hot, right?
I would do it. Icy Hot patches all day.
That's one of the things that people don't realize about VR Esports is that those injuries start to stack up, and they really do make a difference. What do you got going for you in the future? Do you think you have a good shot at taking out Ryuk? I know that he's been slacking at first, but it seems like he's starting to step it up.
If I get Drifter down, I'm going to be able to beat him fairly consistently.
Well, it's great talking to you, Getsu. We can't wait to see what more comes from you. Make sure you baby that wrist. So that was Getsu, one of the few esports pros. Well, he didn't get a chance to go pro. He had that full ride scholarship and then had an injury that rolled him out of that scholarship, and he's been doing other things, and he rolled into VR to compete in those sports. But he has that mind. Those people, when you meet somebody who actually is an esports star, they are, or people even get the full ride scholarships, and you meet them and talk to them and watch them play, you're like, wow, this is a different human than I am. This person is so much better at video games than I ever thought I was, even at my heyday. Like iShiny from Echo Arenas like that.
We're covering 5 games here on this show, but if there's any other cool esports in the future, we're flexible. We'll check your stuff out. We actually have a pretty good staff of people behind us here who all come from different game backgrounds. For example, I play a lot of Pavlov and Beat Saber, which I know has multiplayer now and might be doing some cool stuff in the future. PooNanners comes from Echo Arena. We have Bro also from Pavlov. We have Echo Arena players, Unspoken players, Rook obviously, and this
Charizard
is a show for the people.
Last I heard from Bo that Charizard actually said he would start doing write-ups for us as well. So number one player going to give us some Unspoken stuff. Well, whatever they do, if they're going to give us a script to read, I have no problem with that as long as they're serving some breakfast food. I like a little bacon, maybe some eggs, maybe some pancakes. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm more of a waffle guy. Speaking of waffles, though, there's one VR game out there that we still got to talk about, as well as others, that I think it suffers from a distinct lack of waffle irons. Let's see your video that you did on it.
Onward is a 5v5 VR military simulation shooter with a focus on team play and realistic first-person shooter combat. One of the most original VR shooters, Onward is a staple of VRML. The VR Masters League recently partnered with ESL Gaming and Oculus to bring the highest level virtuality FPS gameplay to a live stream near you. Check them out at vrmasterleague.com. Now into some Onward news. Global Chem proves once again they are a force to be reckoned with, taking the #1 spot in the Onward Invitational over Mob Squad. Mob Squad brought it down to the wire though, losing out in the final map in the best of 5 series. Global Chem now holds the champion titles for Seasons 1 and 2, taking the title in Season 4 that beginners had in Season 3. Now let's send it back to PooNanners, who's going to be talking about a game that doesn't have guns in it.
Well, before we talk about a game that doesn't have guns in it, I have to gush a bit on Onward. We're talking about adding Onward into the VR League, or at the very least including something into our, what back then we were called Challenger League for its first season, as early as the Hamburg Regional Championships for Echo Arena.
Onward's community is very tight-knit. They're one of the older games. I think that game came out August 2016, and it was actually made by a college dropout, Dante Buckley. And that dude dropped out of college to make what is becoming one of the biggest games in VR. Actually is one of the biggest games in VR. Both Onward and Pavlov, highly played shooters. And what people might not know about Onward if you're not wearing the headset is that game sounds scary. The gunshots in that game reverberate a lot better.
Well, taking shots to the suppressing fire, you just...
Yeah,
and every time it happens,
actually gets pretty suppressed. I mean, not like real gunfire, but...
No, it's not that bad.
I've never been under real gunfire, but it's very
It's bad enough for our timid selves.
Yeah, that game. I went in to play evac, and I was no one shoots at the beginning. You know, you're busy scouting out the enemy, and I hadn't played Onward for a couple months. The first shot comes past my head, and it really makes you duck and cover.
Rattled you, huh?
Yeah,
and they do that, right?
Really feel like you're there.
What really sold us on the esports ability of Onward was watching the players throw themselves on the ground when they're taking fire, rolling over on their side to line up a shot. It just did the sick stuff people are doing, setting up sniper file. These guys are so freaking serious. I was hoping that whenever they did the UK cast, that everybody would show up in freaking camo. It didn't happen. But everybody wore jerseys.
That game is realistic, and it's almost as real as this player who we're going to talk to.
Yeah, that's right. It's Otto from the winners of the UK Invitational and the #1 team before they went out there. So there was it sort of went as expected, but Globochem. And the UK game that y'all got to play, this is the first time Master League did something with ESL for the VR League. Was it exhausting and as intense as it looked on camera?
It was, yeah. In addition to jet lag and kind of staying out long nights because we were all just meeting for the first time, the games on the stage were very intense. It was just like a constant adrenaline dump the whole time you're up there. We all had a ton of fun together, like all the different teams. We all hung out together. We had a lot of fun.
That's my favorite part about doing any of the VR esports events, is because I find that VR people are the funnest to hang out with. We all have something that we like. Our interests all seem to line up. After OC4, we were all just playing Smash Brothers. And I was like, wow, we all like that game? Sweet. Well, what do you think this win means for Globochem and Onward in the VR esports genre going forward?
It was really cool to win the first actual like live event invitational. And I think it's so cool to finally get like Onward out there in more of the public eye because it's a really entertaining game to watch. Like the matches are so intense.
So again, that was Otto from Globochem. Those guys are winners from the the UK Invitational from ESL and VR League. So these guys are VR Master League game, and they brought them over to VR League to play. So we started out talking about Echo Arena, which was the final game that we were going to get into for the leagues of the 5 games between the 2 leagues that are currently going on. When we did mention that Onward, I believe that was the close of their season. Pavlov, for example, they still have a challenge ladder, so that's going toe-to-toe. Unspoken is still current in the second season for VR League. Sprint Vectors in the second season, their first time as the second season, so I guess you could call it their first season. But here's Echo Arena in their second season, and here's the video we produced for that. Echo Arena's full contact, zero gravity space hockey action game came to a climax with the Stage 1 finals 2 weeks ago. Now, what happened is the final match went into overtime, as you can see here. And that's usually a bad thing for any team going up against Eclipse because they still have the fastest joust. Jax, the second place team in the world, they split up. Boop took off to another team, and they did not do so well in their Stage 1 finals. And then started a whole other team and picked up Affenterror, their previous defender. Eclipse taking the Stage 1 finals, as you can see there, very easily, and giving second pretty handedly to 11.5. So we're going to take a look at the bracket for the Stage 1 finals. You can see Eclipse just marches all the way down, but 11.5 does make them work for it. Omegator's Sealable Bags team with a couple of changes in the lineup was a bit of a problem for them, so they didn't quite make it, but I think we're going to see a better showing coming from them. Now in the European Stage 1 finals, as you can see, the name has already changed because of the moment at which we captured this, but it was BLT with cheese instead of blah, blah, blah. They didn't do well here in the Stage 1 finals. You can see it was a close game with Aftershock, but I guess they were upset. And it was after that game that I heard the Niles, one of the best defenders in the European League, has decided to officially retire. And as you can see for the Stage 1 finals, kind of an upset. The number 4 team in the world and the number 4 seed from the EU before the World Finals back in March, Team Gravity, the only team who hasn't completely shook up everyone that's on them since the finals, was able to take the Stage 1 and that qualifying spot, which takes us to the North American Cup 4-1. Not too much different going on in Form 1. You expect Eclipse beating him out. Megator's taking up the slack. But then in the Cup 2, we saw Metamerx coming out of nowhere and beating 11.5. Fair enough, Speedy, Strimbitsky. Everybody loves these guys. Everybody knows them from the beta, and here they are coming out on top and really going to make 11.5 work for it if they want to get back into the World Qualifier and take the Stage 2 final to see. I can't wait to see how that one shakes down. Honestly, it's going to be very exciting to watch. And if we check out the European Cup 4-1, we're going to see that blah, blah, blah was able to take that handily. Also watching 4-2, Aftershock, that's Slin's new team. Head-to-head combat between Aftershock and blah, blah, blah to fight it out in the Stage 2 finals to see who's going to make it to the World Qualifier. Yeah, so it's definitely a hard fought. I know blah, blah, blah has a lot of the old pros, but they're going to have to fight against another pro that was originally on their team. For whatever reason that Jax decided to split up, I still don't know the full story behind that drama. I'm sure it's a sore topic. But it looks like they're in a head-on collision with each other to try to get that last World Qualifier spot. I noticed while I woke up a little bit early, and so I started doing some of the European matches, and they seem to move a lot faster than the American leagues, which made me kind of fearful for the World Finals for the Americans. It's like either you guys are, what's the word to look for, sandbagging it, or you're going to be in some serious trouble. They stack up. Well, like that. It's a mechanic we've seen some people play, and I see a lot of the younger kids in North America do this. But what they'll do is once the disc runs, usually, you get a breakaway, turnover, disc will run to the other side, and if you're lucky, you have one guy on the goal, and it ends up being 2v1 on them, and you can't stop the attack. But now what people do is they'll form up like this, and they'll re-grab on each other and boost all the way down like a bullet. And the only defense to that is to intercept them like you would a disc. You reach out, and usually it's like your defender or somebody on your team reaches out and grabs them, and you try to knock them both out. Well, I was playing a game where they were doing that, and I reached out to grab them, and I was instantly going so fast. I was like, oh my God.
For those of you who might not have seen this before, picture a ladder that's 2 people, and the people are climbing each other.
Yes.
So they're using that
Horizontally.
to continue the momentum. Yeah, you're climbing your friend. It's a 2-man operation through space. Is basically what we're talking about here.
And nothing makes me smile more to watch people do this, and nothing makes me happier to know that the people that are honestly the best at it naturally are the youngest players. That they don't have like really good strategy worked out and communication yet because they are still young, but being able to do a mechanic like that is brain breaking for somebody who's older to young guys like, oh no, this makes sense.
Just Echo Arena is a game with advanced movement, zero gravity, and every game has its advanced movement, but it just looks more ridiculous in space. We have bunny hopping, or back in the Titanfall days when you'd slide to like chain your momentum, all that kind of stuff. And then to do it in VR where you're physically doing it and not just pushing buttons is hard. I'm not going to say that's not difficult. But to actually do it with your arms and be coordinated with someone and actually see it in first person, that's a whole nother level of virtual athleticism.
But let's check out this interview that Hasko, a community favorite from Echo Arena, the #1 stunner as she is. If you see she's on the other team, you know your skull's about to get cracked. Doing this interview with virtual reality jersey from Team Gravity.
Could you tell me a little bit about your team, your teammates, and how you guys came together?
My two teammates right now are Viatrex and Martin the third. So me and Martin started Team Gravity in the third week of the first season. So yeah, we've been here since the very, very beginning. And then Viatrex joined us kind of mid last year. And yeah, so it's been us three this season, and I mean, things are going pretty well so far. It's been a interesting start to the new season that, as kind of everyone knows, it was a bit of a last minute, like, oh, hey guys, you're playing next week. And like, oh, that's great. I've got holidays planned, but never mind. Okay. This game's so new, even a year in, that players are reaching their skill caps like on a regular basis, and you're starting to see that with a lot of teams.
Yeah.
I think it's happened in North America as well, where teams have been kind of adding and removing players because people realize that it was the first year, so a lot of players that joined and that were good have actually reached a certain level where it's really hard to get past.
Yeah.
So I kind of get that level of state of flux is going to be a thing. I think offensively, we've got a formula that works really well, and we've got so many variations to that. There's a really interesting split actually between EU and NA. There's like the two regions develop styles completely different, which is really interesting. Last season there were actually more similarities. This season it's like two completely different styles.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of continue to develop. I think EU, it's going to be really interesting, but I think for us specifically, I mean, developing strategies is something that we do well. But also I think like the speed of our play and kind of how we can tie in those strategies together, we're essentially kind of moving from one strategy to the next and kind of blending the two plays.
Yeah.
So it kind of creates a seamless play from defense to offense. And I mean, you can see in the matches that we play really well in that they'll usually be by like a landslide because we end up on the front foot. And I think when we play and we can get to play that kind of game that we want to, it shows in our play basically.
That's great.
So I absolutely love watching Echo players discuss things with each other. The body language, the IK engine in Echo Arena is really good, so everybody's very expressive.
Also, the arms in Echo Arena are awesome. That's really like my VR standard now is actually, wow, my elbow bends and my wrist bends and I have an arm computer. That's extra. But to be able to see the whole thing, not just the controller, that's awesome.
It's the first thing anybody notices in that game. They're like, oh my God, my hands, my arm, my shoulders. We wanted to talk a little bit about Echo Combat. We got to play it at E3. We got to play the version that is still not out in the open beta. We had all the items here on the floor. We played multiple times throughout the day, just one-on-one and kind of showing the other people the ropes, not completely destroying them.
Yeah, so this was really awesome to actually have all of us in the same game together because the party system isn't live in the game yet, but we got to see things that the other people playing the open beta haven't seen yet, like the stun grenade and the shield, which replaces the threat scanner and the healing, and the stun grenade obviously replaces the standard disc grenade. And the shield is a deployable shield that doesn't move with you, so I think you used it. I didn't get to use it ever because I just stuck with healing all day.
But you got to hold on to it the whole time. And that was something I actually didn't like about it. But you can shoot through it. They can't shoot back at you.
But Echo Combat, if you guys don't know, the objective is to move a flamingo from one side of the map to the other. If you're on the attacking side, if you're on the defending side, your job is to make sure it doesn't hit various checkpoints and get to the end of the map. Competitively, I bet you we switch sides and see who can push the flamingo farther and faster. And you have a variety of weapons. There's the pistol, which shoots really fast, acts more like an assault rifle, the sniper rifle, and the shotgun. And there's healing. There's the threat scanner, which shows enemies on the map. There's the shields. So there's different roles you can play, different weapons you can use, different grenades you can use. And of course, it all uses the Echo Arena style movement that we all know and love, where we're floating around in space. That opens up a lot of flank opportunities, high ground, low ground, going around people, getting on their back, sticking on your teammates, a lot of advanced movement options.
Yeah, they have that similar handshake mechanic that you have in Rec Room, but you can actually grab each other and throw each other. I think you can. I don't remember like what the limits of that mechanic was, but I wanted to play with it to see what it is you could actually pull off by being able to go hand to hand. It changes the entire idea of hand to hand combat. This comes to the end of our stream. Sorry we took so long. I know we get carried away, but we also had entirely too much to cover this time because we kept putting this off. We have listed there Reddit /r/esports VR. That is where the community gets together for esports. We were invited to join that subreddit, so we're there looking at what you have, any kind of highlights, play of the game. Like I said, we don't know what we're doing. There are no rules. We do what we want. We're going to eat waffles on stream. This is the kind of no rules that there are. Bro VR, he mentioned earlier, he was our Pavlov writer, did an incredible write-up on VR Master League's website. Underneath Pavlov, you can actually read that right now, and he's going to do more writing for us. And if you see something in that that you want us to include, let us know. This is a community thing. This is something that we're building, just part of the mission statement that Nikki has become very familiar with.
We feel that there's nobody better suited to expressing the excitement of competitive VR than its players. So our writers and video team are firmly rooted in the games they cover, which is true. So if you guys want to contribute, contact any of these down below to get in contact with the Esports VR Human Resources Department. Like we said, graphics, writing. If you want to contribute a game or say, hey, come check out this new game that you guys didn't cover, we're always looking for that too, because if I'm not playing it, we'll definitely find someone who will.
Exactly. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.